Welcome to Pull the Pin Already, a place where average veterans come to share their opinions about the world we live in. We can't guarantee you're going to like our opinions, but we promise we're going to give them to you anyway. I'm Jim.
I'm Tanner.
Let's pull the pin. Welcome back, Tanner. Good to see you, man.
Good to
Somebody
be back,
finally
Jim. Thank
consistent.
you.
Somebody finally consistent on the show here,
Yeah, right?
huh? Just kidding, man. But Nate's always been loyal, but he takes a lot of vacations, so and he doesn't watch this,
Yeah,
so I can
well,
talk about him.
good for him. I wish I could take a lot of vacations.
Yeah, he's a government worker, so I guess he gets paid real good.
Ugh.
So
Uh,
again, we're going to break the style because we're not going to do a lot of headlines here. I may pull up a headline just to share and use it as a reference point to start with. But I think there's
sure.
something you wanted to talk about that you saw the other day.
Oh, yeah, the border issues. Man, border issues are getting rough, man. Or, well, they've been for a while, but it's getting to a point where that's starting to bubble over. Because I don't know if you've done like a lot of looking into it, but I've caught a couple of live streams off of YouTube when they were active. A lot of these people that were coming through, they weren't Mexicans. I I was in the Marine Corps. 90% of the Marine Corps is Hispanic, mainly Mexicans. The running joke in the Marine Corps is name five Marines. Hernandez. Like,
Mhm.
come on now. So I know a Mexican when I see them. I was stationed in Southern California. These guys were absolutely some kind of Muslim, some kind of Arab. They had to have shaved their beards before they came through because they were darker. They were speaking a different dialect. There was different tone of voice. And there's an actual video of a guy claiming to be the leader of, I think it was the Mujahideen. He was literally saying, "You've never heard of me, but you will." Like these guys were trying to warn us, and we're just not listening.
Well, like I said, I mean, it goes back to what we may have talked about the a previous episode we did about the whole Democrat process and all that. Like, look, let's put it on the table. Look, I'm for immigrants. I married an immigrant. You know what I mean? She's since passed, but I mean, I'm not against. My kids are half South American. Like,
Absolutely.
I'm not against immigration. I mean, my family.
No.
I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for immigration.
Right? The whole country is born from immigrants. Unless you're Native American, you weren't here to start.
Right. And you could have been, you could have actually come from South America or North America and, still before there were borders, right? But the point I'm getting at is I'm all for it when it's controlled and regulated. And I don't mean over
Hmm.
regulated by government, but let's be real. I don't know. You're not familiar with one of the techniques I used to use, but I always like to bring things into your house. No matter what the topic, whether it's the budget, immigration, whatever, bring it into your house. Like, I know you've heard people say, oh, well, you got a front door, you lock it. Right. But you don't just let all the people in your house, do you?
No.
You don't let your
No, I
neighborhood just
regulate
come
who I
down in
let
your
into my
house.
house
You're right. And why don't you do that?
because I'm not trying to let somebody in who's going to be a danger to my family.
Right. So for one, you don't know these people. They're going to take resources that you can't afford or you haven't been able to afford, whatever. So there's a whole bunch of reasons why you won't let people in your house. The only reason we're letting these people in our country, or people are turning a blind eye, I should say, is because it doesn't affect them yet. And then when it's in their city, like you look at New York, now all of a sudden these communities are like, "Oh, we can't handle this. This is terrible." They didn't care when it was Texas's problem or Arizona's
Nope.
problem, but now they care. So it's the my in
Yep.
my what do they call it? NIMBA, not in my backyard, or NIMBY. So
Well,
that's the
yeah.
problem.
It's because now it's brought to their doorstep. The problem is now dropped in their front lawn, and it's like,
Right.
deal with it.
So you're saying there's terrorists. We know there's terrorists because it's been going on. I haven't seen what's been going on the border lately, but I've been watching all ever since Biden got in office the last 3 years. That probably 15, 20 million of them came across all of these guys, middle-aged military men. You know what I mean? So
Hmm.
again, people are sitting here like, oh, no big deal, no big deal. Nobody's talking about it because it hasn't happened yet. When something happens, everybody's like, how did this happen? How did our government let this happen? Or they'll come up with some
Because
little
you
whiny,
weren't paying
yes,
attention. The
yes.
writing was on the wall, and you chose not to read it.
So, but Tanner, let me ask you, because this is a lifelong dilemma, I think, with a lot of people. Some people think it's not right to get involved in things that don't affect you. It's like getting in other people's business. It's like being a Karen or
Hmm.
whatever, like that, or a snitch or things like that. Some people believe that that is the way you should live your life. Leave others alone. But this is the problem. If something is wrong, or someone is breaking the law, or someone is lying, you need to get involved, whether it affects you or not, because it
You
will
have a
eventually affect you.
you have a moral obligation to fix the problem.
Mhm.
Like if you see that there is something that is detrimental, that is actually becoming a problem, and no one else is doing anything about it, if not you, then who?
Yeah. But do you not see this in your regular life? Like, do you not see this
Oh,
if
every
you're,
day.
yeah, if you're in a grocery store and somebody comes in, starts acting a fool, how many people look away like somebody else will handle it? And I kind of understand it. Like, you don't want to get yourself killed by getting
Yeah.
involved with a crazy person, but at the end of the day, you do absolutely nothing and then somebody gets hurt. And how do you
It's
feel?
like me as an American, as a Marine, I carry every day. So I'm ready for things to level to escalate to that level, but I would not dare let anything happen to women and children or anybody, in fact, if I'm in public. So I know that I would be willing to make that choice and engage that person if the situation dictated. But like you said, I don't know many other people who would because it's almost like people are lacking a spine these days.
Yes.
Like no one wants
Courage.
to step up and do the hard thing because it's hard.
Yeah, it's courage. I know we keep talking about this stuff, but that's what it is. We've got a society of weak men, because the men before
Yup.
us, even if you look at the military before my time were strong men. The
Oh,
military
absolutely.
probably in your time, you probably had stress cards and using all electronic equipment, never have to pick up a map and a compass
So
and
so I will make that clarification. I went through boot camp in 2021. We didn't have no stress cards. We didn't get no electronics. We still got the dog shit beat out of us, and it was no picnic. The army, however, was the ones who were recently integrating the stress cards because they were bringing that in. I think around like 2022 is when I started to hear about it because I was
right.
on Fort Leonard Wood, um, for Seaburn training, and exactly, dude. It's breeding weak men. Like, w- bring back the beatings, bring back the hazing, bring back the public shaming because everything we did back in the day worked. It worked. We won world wars. We
Right.
stomped out the Koreans. We pushed back the Chinese. We were absolutely unstoppable, immovable force. Like, and there was no unstoppable object. But now, I'm honestly scared to see what would happen in an open conflict. Because I was a combat marksmanship coach. My job, like, it was a secondary MOS for me, 0933. It was appalling to see the rifle skills of some of the Marines on Camp Pendleton. Like, my job was to teach these people, and I was scared to see them try to defend the guy to their left or their right. Like, we need to do something.
Yeah. I
It's
mean,
it's just it's a piss poor sight.
I agree, and I think, like I said, I'm not in touch with it. And let me just clarify, to give you some benefit. How I'm not picking on the Marine Corps, because I do respect the Marine Corps. Their mission is different, and they did hold off the wokeness for the longest. I still think you
Mhm.
got different standards for men and women, though, right?
Yes, that's
So,
true, and
so yeah, you
believe
still
me, they are
capitulated,
they're
right?
vastly unfair.
Right. You still capitulate to the wokeness just so we can have women bullet catchers. You know what I mean? Like, I don't understand why they'd want to do that, but you know what I mean? So To me, that's
Yeah.
still a step in the wrong direction.
Oh
You know,
yeah. And
I want my
I
Marines
wasn't
tough.
ragging on the army with their stress cards. It's
Oh
just
no,
that's
you're
just
no,
what I heard coming
no,
through.
no. You're absolutely right. I believe I'll rag on the army because you're absolutely right. But our mission is completely different than yours. We got bullet catcher missions, but we're mostly an occupying force. So a lot of our missions
Absolutely.
could be support related. And I totally don't have a problem if you set up a hospital and you have all the feminine people, men and women, back in the hospitals, taking care because they're good at taking care of people.
In the rear with the gear,
Yes,
but put the
totally.
men on the front lines.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Exactly. I'm totally okay with diversity in that aspect in the rear because some of those strengths are better because when you get masculinity problems, they necessarily don't make good nurses or doctors, so I get that. The
No.
difference is though you can't take it away. And in the military, we have a mission. You don't get to just say, "Hey, well, I think we need diversity on the front lines." Like you don't get to just say that. That makes no
No, no,
sense.
we need dudes who can actually put holes in bad guys, maintain the mission, and, be mission effective.
Yeah.
We don't need somebody who's gonna look at the enemy, get weak knees, and, miss their shot and then get themselves killed.
I think of that scene in Private, was it Saving Private Ryan? Remember the dude on
Oh,
the
Corporal
staircase?
Upham. Corporal Upham. I would love to grab that actor by the neck and punch him in his face. He's a great actor because he made me hate him.
Right,
But
right, right.
man, that scene gets my blood boiling every time. I know exactly what you're talking about.
But
How
those
the
are what we
Nazi's
have
sitting
now.
there
That,
pushing that knife down and he does absolutely nothing.
yep,
And that's my biggest fear because these people that are getting through, they some of them I've seen, they're not playing with a full deck.
no.
Like, they got a couple of screws loose.
But in all
And
fairness, let me address another angle of that too, though, because you see this in law enforcement, you see this in everywhere. And I have to tell you, I even took the trip today to a VA hospital, and then I went to a VA building, and I had to get on the phone with DFAS, and I'm like, I'm not sure if the pool of qualified people is big enough anymore. I'm just
no,
not. I
no,
can't
I don't think it
believe.
is.
I can't believe we have this many incompetent, weak people. But I have to believe that's what we've become.
We're not breeding strength anymore. We're breeding inclusiveness. We're breeding participation. We're breeding
Hmm.
happiness and creative. We're not breeding strength, determination, willpower, grit.
And,
Like,
and these
no.
people are going to find out that their happiness is because of people like the before us and before that fought for it, that now can't sit alone at home at night and have those fun times because they're thinking about all the bad things that they've seen and done or had to do. You know what I mean? So that these people can all be happy. They don't get that, but they'll find
I
out.
When I was going through MCT, I had a sergeant. He told us, and I'll never forget this as long as I live. He said, "If you go in country and you are in combat, these people that you are engaging, you will no longer view them as humans.
Yeah,
Think of them as targets wearing clothes." I was like,
you have
"Wow,
to.
yeah, that's effective."
Well, you have to because you're not a monster. So they
No,
have to
you
find
can't
a
bring
way.
that shit back with you.
Yes, that's why many people struggle when they get back because you have to deprogram that stuff.
I guess for me, I've always been good at compartmentalization. You know,
Yes,
you got your typical veteran story, rough childhood, blah blah blah.
right,
Not gonna bore anybody with details, but you know, I'm very good at compartmentalizing. So I was there, I was ready. Like if they were to send me to combat, I never went, fortunately for me, but I believe I could have done it. I'm not gonna, say I would have been great to take away from combat veterans. I'm not. I just know that my training was good, and I would have been effective.
right. Well, the biggest step is to be willing to do it. That's the first step because I will tell
Yeah,
you, I've been on several deployments and I've seen lots of people weasel their way out of it. I've seen
You
lots
know,
of
and that's where you have to make the distinction is who joined for college and benefits and who joined for the actual love of country and willingness to serve.
yeah, these I've seen these men come in and they come to their work and job and they do what they got to do, and then the moment that duty calls, oh no, I can't do. I get this, I get that, I get out of it. And
Oh
some of these were
no,
my friends.
medical, dental. Oh no.
I'm telling you, Tanner, some of these were my friends when I was in the reserves, which is completely different because most of these guys have civilian lives they've got to protect. But one of my best friends got out of a deployment and I was pissed because I actually left the
Yeah,
state and moved back or came back to deploy with that unit because I loved those people. And then the ones that I was
absolutely.
there bailed out.
I joined the Marine Corps to get out of the country. Like people who would willingly weasel out of a deployment. Why?
Yeah.
I mean, it, I don't get it. You signed on to do the job, do the job.
Well, too though, Tanner, you can't hate the player, right? Hate the game, right? Because at the end of the day, if the Army or Marine Corps is going to let them get away with that crap, like I think when we did your intro video, I talked about the Hawaii thing. Like there were people stationed in Hawaii for 10 years, their whole entire career, and I'm like,
Yeah,
how
the
is the
brown nosers
military letting them do that?
because they provide something mutually beneficial to the government.
Right. They've got some position that they didn't want. Oh, it's more beneficial. Oh, we don't want the cost of moving them. I mean, there's always these
They
excuses. But at
know
the end of the day,
Yeah, they know someone, they got some
yeah,
leverage somewhere, and they have managed to keep themselves in a nice place.
right. And there is some benefit to that. So there is some benefit, I agree. But at the end of the day, there should be some reward or better benefits for those of us who were willing to go to the front line, for those of us who were willing to deploy.
Absolutely.
And I know you
Absolutely.
get combat pay, you get a lot of stuff, but promotions should be easier when you deploy, things like that. So, and I do think there was some of that. So I'm not going to totally act like the military's to blame. But I just, yeah, again, I think you're right. I think when I was in the service, that was a rare thing to see those weak men. But now I'm just looking around and I think there's a lot of weak men. They're
They
keyboard
are just
warrior
popping
tough.
up like weeds.
Yeah, they're tough on the keyboard, and they may even be tough out there with cheap shots and what I mean, stuff like that. But they're not man enough to do the right thing or do the hard
No.
thing, like you said.
No, anyone who signs on the dotted line, I mean, yeah, you wrote the check. I mean,
Yeah,
if the time comes to cash it, you can't, really back out of that.
and
Like
it's
otherwise,
coming.
it for you, it comes down to, like you say, convictions. It comes down to personal belief and how you hold yourself as a person. If you can look yourself in the mirror and still like what you see after weaseling your way out of something that you could have rightfully been there doing,
Yep.
I don't want to be anywhere near you.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm telling you, there's times where like I got to a unit right after a deployment, and I'm the outsider and I'm an outcast. All these guys talking about their deployment, the camaraderie, and I'm nobody to them. So imagine being the guy that weasels out, and then the unit comes back. Nobody wants to talk to you. Nobody's even going to
No,
bother with
you're
you.
the outcast.
Yeah,
You're the runt now. Like,
that's the way they look at you. And it's coming, dude. It's coming. We all know something's going to go crazy. I don't think we get to this election. I don't think we get to whether we start a war with Iran or this. I guess what's it, China now and Russia. I think you said
oh
something
yeah,
offline about
I saw something. So there were Chinese and Russian
bombers, right?
strategic bombers. They were nuclear capable bombers. They weren't armed, but they were about 200 miles off the coast of Alaska.
Well,
And
well, let's
then
be let's be fair. Alaska and Russia, people don't realize are really close.
oh yeah, I think at their closest they're like 13 miles.
Yeah, I mean, I think when it freezes up there, you can walk across the ice.
Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah,
mean, it's real close. So. Fallout may have had it right. The Battle of Acreage might start it off.
yeah. And that's what it's about. Like I've said this before, I don't know Russia's goal and objective per se, but China needs land and resources. So
Oh
China is
yeah,
not going to nuke us. They're not going to destroy the land because they need it. But
yeah. They're overpopulated. They've ruined their country, so
yeah,
they're trying to spread.
yeah. So that's why the whole virus thing was a big deal, because if you can kill all the people without the resources dying out, then you just walk in and take them. Like kind of like people could say we did American Indians, which is
Yeah.
funny, right? It's funny that people all up in arms, but that's what every country's done. The history of mankind, every country
At
has
some
gone to
point or
war.
another, every country's committed an atrocity or two.
They've all gone to war and conquered lands for resources.
Yep.
So, yeah, in the end, you can say all you want to say, but it would have happened either by settlers or another country. It didn't matter. So you'd be speaking Chinese right now if it wasn't for that.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
so, anyways, yeah, I guess we dove into a bunch of things though. So I really appreciate it, Tanner. We're going to call this one before this gets too long. I appreciate. I love having these
Absolutely.
conversations. I hope more veterans
Oh,
out
me
there get
too.
involved because we need them. Get some of your buddies if you got any friends. Get some veterans out here. Get involved. You don't have to do every episode. You don't have to do all the fancy stuff. You just got to show up and join the conversation. And you can do that by reaching out to us on the website down there, pulltheprinterready.com. There's a contact us section. And if you don't, just find our social medias where we're posting and all that stuff. And then, like, share, subscribe, get involved and prompt it. And I haven't given a shout out in a bit for Johnny and Christine. They're our loyal listeners, and we appreciate you and we see you. Don't feel like we're ignoring you. But we're going to go ahead and sign off of this one. So until next time, Godspeed.
And pull the pin.
Yes. Thanks for joining us here at Pull the Pin Already. We hope you had as much fun as we did. If you like what we do, go ahead and hit that like button and share this video with a friend. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell button so you don't miss out on any of our future episodes. But most importantly, leave a comment below. Let us know if you agree or disagree with our opinions. Hope to see you here next time on Pull the Pin Already.